Unlocking Stuff and Dead Things, Episode 2. I am Bird.
I'm Spaz.
And let's get this started with the barbecue. I just got started with the barbecue.
I was gonna say we're not messing around. We gotta skip right to the meal.
Oh,
right to the main course, as it were.
I'm not one on eating and running, so I want to.
Well, Bob's not gonna be running anywhere anytime soon.
Not with the one leg.
I have this image of like Bob's leg meeting Herschel's leg, and I'm just going for a run. I'm sorry.
Too soon.
Guys, those of you who've been watching me for a while, you know that bad jokes come with the territory, right? Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so, new character, Father Gabriel. Kinda seems skittish. Kinda seems like he has something to hide.
Does. Kinda seems like he might be trying to fuck them over. I almost want to say that at this point, if it turns out he's sort of in association with the guys from Terminus, that might be a thing. Like, oh, here's this, helpless little guy. A, we could help him, or on the other side of the coin, B, we could take him and take his shelter and food and whatnot. Either way, it draws the whole group there. The residents formerly known as Terminus surround the church, take them all out at once. Big revenge thing. Could be a thing.
Could be.
Other side of the coin, just he seems like somebody who's like super shitting his pants and glad to have some company.
Yeah, but I mean, like, looking around at what he's been dealing with, he's been in that church. He's been in that church the entire time, and
if you believe his story.
Well, that's if you believe his story. We didn't see him at Terminus, so we don't know whether or not he was there. But he was probably set up on top of that rock, knowing that they were going to be going through that way and being like, hey, help me, come over here and help me, I'm stuck.
I was going to say, this story of him being like the naive, helpless guy, victim in peril, whatever, is fine if you forget the fact that it's been going on several years and several, I want to say, even though we haven't seen it in the show, several winters. And somebody that naive and helpless and so on and so forth, I hate to say it and I don't want to sound cold, wouldn't still be around. And there's a cat.
Yep, there's a cat.
But, no, like, the zombie apocalypse, if nothing else, weeds out the weak and leaves the world to the strong, so to speak. So somebody as helpless as he's at least claiming to be wouldn't still be around at this point.
Yeah.
So
this is true. I don't remember who said it specifically, but I know there was like a lot of sayings going around where either like you're naive and you're a good person and you die because of being naive, or you have to kind of straighten up and do what you got to do in order to survive.
Yeah.
And he is clearly the kind of person where he's too skittish. Like, he's been kind of held up in his church for quite a while and, hasn't really ventured outside. And that kind of makes me wonder if, like...
For somebody who's been so long without company, again, according to what he's told them, he seems very nervous to have it now.
Yeah.
For somebody who hasn't had a lot of company in a while, he still seems to be in that same mentality of that we're all in, that the group is all in, that, in this world the people are still a lot more dangerous than the walkers. Yeah. Now, you wouldn't get yourself to that mentality mentally if you've been on your own and not encountering people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of holes. I mean, obviously, like, you could speculate, okay, maybe his church was attacked and whatever, but then he says he's never killed anybody, so... If his church, he's never killed a walker. But if he's never killed anybody, and nobody's ever come for him, and I mean, look at the ransacking they just did, just going from the campground to the farm, from the farm to the prison, like that. The church that he's held up in is pretty pristine looking. Like, you got all the art from all the kids that used to go there still up on the walls. You got a plethora of canned food and perishables and whatnot there, where he hasn't had to go out and scavenge for the first couple of years of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, that reeks of a lot of bullshit.
Well, I wouldn't say the place is actually completely pristine. Like, it's been well maintained, but I mean, like, there's nothing aside from the noticeability of the scratches outside the window.
which we'll get to in a second. But I mean, as far as being inside, as far as being like, it doesn't look like it's been destroyed.
No.
It doesn't look like anybody's tried to ransack it.
No broken windows.
Not even an attempt. Like, not even a bunch of like. I think of the mall in the first season where Rick first meets up with the rest of the group from the camp, and they're in that mall, and all the walkers. Eventually, there's just so many of them that they start pushing through that glass door, while he's having the conversation about mermaids with Andrea, I think. And they eventually just push through the glass. Like, there's nothing to even indicate that anything has even slightly come up against that, except for people that have written on it, so forth and so on.
That also kind of brings to mind the church from season 2.
It does, which I thought it was at the beginning. I think it was.
That's what I thought too, because when we watched it, the first thing I thought of was the church from season 2, and the first thing I thought of was in season 2
when they were looking for Sophia.
When they were looking for Sophia, but I mean the walkers that were sitting in the church.
Yeah, but you have to figure though, in that scenario, if it was the church that they had come across before, and this guy's been here since before the apocalypse. Before the apocalypse, he was doing a food drive with his congregation, and he's been there ever since. He would have been there, first of all. Second of all, he might have seen Sophia. Third of all, I'd like to think that if he's been living there since forever, and he had been in that church the whole time, he would have turned off that electric bell that they had running at that church. Because that's, again, not to be crude, that's a dinner bell. Literally. But getting back to those scratches on the door,
scratches
on the windowsill rather. Specific, I think the phrase was "you're going to burn for this" or something to that effect. I know you have an assumption as to what that meant.
The scratches on the window, I'm not exactly sure what they are specifically, because I mean, like, considering the circumstances, they could just be walkers trying to get in.
Somebody writing in clear English.
Yeah, walker's not like, you're gonna burn, not gonna happen.
You're going to burn, and when you burn, I will eat your brain.
Was this put there before the apocalypse as a graffiti thing? Like, maybe he did something, which is part of what he's hiding, and someone from the church found out about it and carved it into the church itself as a reminder.
In human times.
Yes, in human times, pre-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And then looking at it now, it's probably something that's been haunting him, because now that he's alone, he doesn't really have anything to, or anyone to tell or confess to or anything like that. So he's kind of skittish of new people that are coming around. Well,
I don't know. He seems pretty adamant that he confesses his sins to God, and he says that multiple times in the episode, and even Rick reiterates it at one point. So obviously he's done something. Just because we are filming this a couple days later, and I've had conversations with a couple of other people, a lot of them, as soon as you see a priest on TV and you implicate that he's got something to hide, the immediate assumption or the immediate sort of cliche to throw into a television program
of, like, the Catholic schoolboys.
The Catholic schoolboys, and the fact that the priest was somehow a pedophile. If that, or he's diddling somebody that he's not supposed to be anyway.
At least not himself.
Well, he can diddle himself all he wants. I don't think God's watching anymore. Come on. Jesus is a zombie. Come on now. But no, getting back to my point.
Ratings!
What?
Ratings.
Oh, yes. But I totally lost my train of thought now. Oh, it's a very cliche thing to throw into most television shows that if there's a priest and he's sketchy, obviously he's dealing with somebody he hasn't been.
Yeah.
It's so cliche to the point where I have such a high standard for this particular show. And we're all
Adjusting.
We're professionals. It's such a cliche, and I have such a high standard for this particular show that if that's what it is, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because that's really cliche.
It's too predictable.
I would like to think that this is a guy that was a good priest at one point, saw the writing on the wall as far as the zombie apocalypse goes, and snapped into a completely selfish self-preservation mode, looked around his church, saw that he had all this food ready and available to him, and kicked out the rest of his congregation.
Possibly.
And, all these people that were looking to this guy for guidance and are now lost for guidance out there, and all they can really do is leave a message for him as they assume that they're going off to their own death.
Yeah.
We hope you burn for this, and that sort of thing. My next thing, and we have the privilege every now and then of watching this show with my mom, and even she agreed with me on this one. we don't know whether he's genuine about his religious beliefs or not. But when he first meets them, and he's very heavy Bible thumper-ish. You know, I've never needed to kill anybody. I've got the Lord to protect me and all this and all that. Now, A, I don't believe that 100%. I believe that's part of his bullshit. But B, how realistic is it at this point in the zombie apocalypse where, if we're going to make a safe guess, I'm guessing they're about 5 years in. It's pretty safe. We know that they've crossed over a couple of winters because it took them... they talked about the winter when they got to the prison, and since then it had to be at least 9 months after that where till Laurie carried Judith to term, and Judith looks like she's about 1.5 years now. So I'm operating under the assumption that it's like we're at least 3, 4, 5 years into the apocalypse. How many people at that point, even if they were vigorous about their religious convictions in the human world per se, how many of them have any faith in a higher power now? And even if there's ones out there that do, how many of them are going to be spouting it off? Because how likely is it the rest of the world wants to hear about it?
This is true.
And I mean, I'm not even saying that that's a part of his scheming
aspect.
Yeah.
Just by chance.
If there is a God.
Just by chance. We're not even going to fucking touch that one. Just by chance, let's say that he did keep his conviction.
Okay.
He did keep his faith, and he did keep all his humanity. Nobody ended up coming to the church.
That we know of.
That we know of.
Or they could have, and they were turned away, hence the writing on the wall. There's my thought on that.
That is a very likely possibility. But if that was pre-apocalypse, and then you go into the whole, he's keeping his conviction, he's keeping his faith because he is still alive. He has stayed in that church, and he's prayed for however long since it started, and he's still alive on
faith.
On faith. That will be enough to keep someone of his religious conviction of being a father continuing on. So he could be telling the truth. But
I'm just saying right now, even in the world we live in currently, how do most people react when people are super pushy about their religious beliefs and whatnot? It's not always... Yeah, no offense, it works for you, go... Like, my thing is, no offense, it works for you, go for it, I'm happy for you, don't throw it in my face. Now, you want to talk about a belief in a higher power and other people that have, you know, gone off and found out that there's a whole lot of bullshit going on in the world, more than usual, and now take people like Rick, like Carl, who had to cut his own mother open, like Andrea, who like had to shoot her sister in the head. Well, Andrea's not with them anymore, that's a bad example. But like...
I got something to tell you about Andrea.
You got something to tell me about Andrea?
Yes. To be continued.
You got Carol that had to set people on fire. You had Rick that had to kick Carol out of their group for it. People that they've seen all this. Even if you are a man of religious convictions, are you going to go to a group that's been through all that with those religious convictions and even try at this point? Like, I'm not even saying it as a mode of his own preservation. I'm just saying that's just a dumb idea all the way around if that's the way you're going to attack things. I mean, all power to you if you've been through all this and you still have those convictions, but give yourself a little bit of a reality check. Most people could not be paid to give a fuck at this point.
No. Just on a side topic, we were talking about Andrea. I meant to tell you this the other day. I read a news report that Andrea, the actor that played Andrea, ended up going undercover and freed 55 sex slaves.
Really? In real life?
Yes, in real life.
Good for her.
Very good for her. I was actually quite surprised when I heard about it. So, good job.
We probably should have looked up her real name if we're going to give her a thumbs up. Again,
she's dead now, it doesn't matter.
Her ghost is haunting sex trade people. Awkward. She's taking a bite out of crime. Anyways, on that note, let's talk about some biology for a second.
Okay.
I would like to talk to you about zombie soup.
Zombie soup sounds tasty.
Now, as last week, I'm going to talk about a little bit of a story arc and the arc that this group has gone through in general, just in terms of what they know about the zombie situation. On the farm, what was probably the grossest thing they ran into on the farm?
Aside from the barn full of walkers, I would say it would have to be the well.
The well walker. and they had to send Glenn down there to give some rope to bring the guy up in one piece because they were worried about contamination. Now,
but what they were worried about, and this I was thinking about, was its bodily fluids.
Yeah, bodily fluids, but also...
Like, yes, it's a zombie, but as far as they could tell, it was all in one piece. It was all in one piece until they were hauling it up and out of the well, and it tore in half and fell in water.
Bodily fluids like blood and saliva and whatnot could be oozing out of a zombie at any given time.
Could.
Because they're dead and they don't know any better.
I'm just generally referring to them being as naive as they were at this point.
Yes.
They were thinking...
Before they realized they all had the virus anyway.
Yeah.
Now, to go from there, where you were worried about one single walker being in your water supply, to going and purposely getting your entire food supply from a place that A, has been underwater from the damage to the roof. Nice touch by the producers there with the damaged roof and everything.
I watched the behind the scenes on that. It was very well done, and it was a very strenuous project for them to do. They actually had
I didn't actually see that
in the basement.
Yeah. But I could see it, and again, it's one of those things where, zombies aren't going to seek out the basement, but zombies might seek out the roof and fall through and get to the basement. But, it's realistic. The water, if there is that hole in the roof, has nowhere to go. How many winters and summers and winters have they gone through to, there we go. There's noises happening outside, guys, sorry.
Trucks.
The water has nowhere to go. It would be there. The zombies would have nowhere to go, because the zombies trudging through the water wouldn't be, making their way upstairs. And you saw when Gabriel tried to escape the state that those stairs were in anyway, even if they had tried.
Yeah.
But they've gone
how much of the chicken shit he was in there, in that pool, cesspool of zombies.
I have a theory on that as well. But, I lost my train of thought, because that's what I do. No, they've gone from being worried about one walker potentially contaminating their entire water supply at the farm to going and getting cart after cart after cart of food from the food bank that has literally been sitting there and soaking God knows how long in zombie soup. Because you saw how much, especially when some of them came up out of the water, which is where I was kind of disappointed, because some of them really did look like dummies in that scene. I hate to pick on the show, but they really did. But you figure they've been rotting away bit by bit, so literally all the food that they're about to eat and depend on has been soaking in zombie soup.
Except for the canned food. All the sealed food is the exception.
Yeah, but there was stuff there that was just in Tupperware tubs.
Yeah, the only difference I find between the pool of walkers in the
well walker.
The food bank.
Okay.
And the well walker is the well walker was the water supply to the entire farm.
Yeah.
This is their drinking water, their bathing water, their cooking water, whatever the case may be. There's a big difference between having a zombie in that and using that water than going into, say, a little pond or this flooded basement of where these zombies are. You're not there for the water, and most of the food that you're taking out of there is sealed anyways.
I have a much simpler suggestion for you.
Okay.
I think a lot of their concerns about contamination at the farm was about them, quote-unquote, catching the virus. Since then, they've had the revelation that, sucks to be you, you already have the virus.
Thanks to that albino motherfucker.
Yeah, so fucks are not given, really.
At least I think he was albino, I don't know.
Which one are you talking about?
The dude at the CDC who blew himself up.
I used to have a problem with exploding. There I go.
There I go.
Alright, so that's enough of that. I just think it's to see where they've come from as far as literally the knowledge of the virus, the situation, the condition that they're in, but has changed how they look at very, very similar situations.
Yeah. Rick and Carol. They had quite the conversation out in the middle of the woods.
They did.
Basically, putting a summary to it, Rick went out, said, you know what, you've done things, I've done things, I'm not exactly sure what you've done, but we're at a point right now where we've hit a crossroads, and even though I've kicked you out, we need you.
Yeah. I said in last week's episode that I didn't like it because things were a little too neat, a little too, gift present bow on the whole thing. And I think you saw where I was coming from with that. All Rick needed to do was what he did this week. Was, we're glad to have you back, you've made contributions, obviously you've saved my daughter, etc. But I still don't know if I'm okay with what you did at the prison. And for me, for that problem that I had with the story last week, that's all they needed to do. Because now it's back to being realistic. Realistically, they need each other.
Yeah.
But it's not realistic to think that, you know, setting a couple people on fire is water under the bridge. It's not, and it kind of loops in with Carol and Tyrese as well. Tyrese sort of indicating her while they're at the river, you know, collecting water and stuff like that. That you get some indication that he's not in fact as okay as he seems to be, but he's making himself be okay because he needs to be. Same as he doesn't want to think about Carol killing the two little girls when they were just on their own. Yeah. He
doesn't know about that.
What?
Rick doesn't know.
Rick doesn't know about that, but I'm speaking about Tyrese when they were at the water.
Yeah.
And he kind of puts it all under the same umbrella. He's like, I've told them, like, everybody knows what you did with the bodies at the prison. I don't want to think about it anymore. I'm not going to tell them what you did to the girls because I need to put it behind me. So he's not as okay, pretty bow on it as they made it look last week either. And again, just him saying, I need to put that behind me, acknowledges that there's something there, which is more realistic than that nice clean-cut feeling we got last week. Although,
like, yeah, shit's messed up, but you know what, we gotta deal with shit, so I gotta put this behind.
We have to work together, but it doesn't mean it's not a simple forgive and forget, kumbaya around the campfire type of thing. Interesting note, and I don't know if this is true or not, but speaking to my friend Krista, who you've heard about and will meet shortly,
yes.
Apparently the reason last week's episode was all neat and tidy and to a bow was because the episode from last week was supposed to be the finale from last season.
Was it?
And yeah, which makes a lot of sense, which means, you know, we've tied up all the loose ends, we've tied up the Terminus thing nice and quick, and we're moving on to the next step. Which would have made sense. For them to destroy Terminus last season, and then have the fallout start this season, I can see it.
Like, yes, we left you at Terminus, now you have to wait an entire, you know...
We left you at Terminus so that everybody watching is going to wait a couple of months thinking that this is going to be a big war on Terminus. Oh, 30 minutes later, there's no more Terminus. But yeah, so that may in fact be a thing. As I say, it's just a rumor that I heard. But if that is the case, a lot of my problems with it being nice and neat and tied up would be severely brought down.
That was my phone.
Oh, that was a thing with stuff.
Speaking of Tyrese, still a better mother than Lori.
Tyrese is more... Okay, because, let's face it, even though Lori, you know, torched a couple people, let's be real, you know, good old American barbecue, they did form a makeshift family while they were on the road, Tyrese and Carol and Judith and the other two girls.
Yeah.
Definitely Carol was the dad.
Yeah.
In that group. And I don't say that in a disrespectful, let's label genders kind of way, and I really hope it doesn't come across that way, but she was the one going out there doing the scouting, doing the hunting, getting the food, etc. He was the one
taking care of Judith.
Taking care of Judith and taking care of the kids, and you know, he was being the stay-at-home mom, so to speak. So I think it's really cool, and when they, in this episode specifically, when they were all getting ready to go to the food bank, and Tyrese pops up and he says, you know, anytime you need me to watch Judith, I have no problem with that. And then he stops himself and he's like, anytime you need me to do anything for that girl, I'm there.
Yeah.
And Rick knows it.
Well, I think it's come down to the point where he's realizing what he has to do in this world, and now that he's spent that time with Carol and the other kids and Judith, and being that protector for Judith, he's kind of realized that this kid is what we are fighting for.
Yeah. I think he also realizes that...
Abraham Ford did the exact same thing during his speech, which we'll get to after, but everybody's kind of sitting there and collaborating and saying, you know what, there's a child in our midst. And it is a newborn child. It is less than a year old.
It doesn't really know how fucked up the world is.
No, this is all it knows. This is all she knows. And because of that, we have to protect her and make sure she grows up properly and knowing how to defend herself, knowing how to survive. God willing that they can have all this stuff figured out, and Eugene can do his miracle, you know...
Cure that's not going to work?
Yeah. everybody's saying the exact same thing. If we're gonna go to Washington, let's do it for that little girl.
Yeah, I think as well though, like
if we can fix this planet and fix this world,
she might have a life.
She'll have a life.
Yeah, I think the conversation, just speaking on that alone, the conversation we had with Bob and Rick on the way to the food bank about what world is real and what world is a bad dream, and friggin' Bob was going at it from, we're going to go back to the world we had and this is going to look like a dream, and Rick sort of gave him the reality check. He was like, sorry, this is the real world now.
Yeah.
It's the optimist, pessimist conversation. It is cliche, but it's cliche in the way that's right for this type of show. I think as well, like in a group, if you're out there solo, you have to be good at everything. If you're in a group, each person can be good at stuff, and of all of them, except for Judith herself, I think Tyrese at this point is the one that's least likely or least apt to go out and start killing shit. So if he needs to reserve himself back and he needs to be like sort of that caregiver, that mom figure for Judith, I think he's embracing that because somewhere in his psyche, in his character, in his whatever, that's a less violent role in the group, and he's maintaining some of his humanity.
Yeah.
Going back to his conversation that he had with the Terminus guy last week, when the guy's like, why aren't you killing me right now? Anybody that knows what the hell they're doing and what we're up against these days would be killing me right now. Why aren't you?
Because nobody has to die.
Yeah, Tyrese is the most human.
Passive.
He's the most passive, but I think he's the one that's maintained the most of his compassion on a very, very human level. And I think the fact that of anybody, even more so than wanting to go out with them and get food, he wants his role to be, if you need me to take care of Judith, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Which I think is fantastic, because you see him and he's built like a refrigerator. You would think by looking at him, he's the one that's going to go out there and wreck shop. You'd think he'd be the one going out there and being like Daryl and fucking shit up, being like Michonne and fucking shit up. But it's a nice contrast that you got that big tank of a guy, and he doesn't want anything else than to sit in the front pew in the church and take care of Judith. I think that's pretty badass, actually.
It is. There was one thing that we missed last week that we need to hit up this week, and we didn't cover it because partially I didn't know about it.
Yeah, it's after the credits.
It's after the credits. The only time anybody ever does anything after the credits, as far as I've ever seen, has been in the Marvel movies.
Movies in general are doing that, but apparently none of the shows that I watch. But apparently that's becoming more of a thing.
Yeah. But I wasn't looking out for it. It's not something that I stuck around to the end of the credits.
Because here's the thing, and this is not a dig at AMC, but they crammed a lot into that last little bit there. You've got the end of the actual show, you've got the coming next week on The Walking Dead, you've got the credits, you've got Chris Hardwick, even though the show's about to start, saying this is what we're going to do on Talking Dead, and then you had that little 30-second clip of Morgan.
Yeah.
Just enough that you see that he's just on the heels of the rest of the group that have crossed out the Terminus sign, and he's following the markings that at that point I thought were made by Rick.
What are those markings?
I'm not so sure anymore. I don't think we're supposed to know yet. When I saw it at first, I figured, okay, going back to the me that had only seen episode 1, I thought it was a case of Rick not only eliminated the Terminus sign, he wanted to create a conscious path somewhere else for any other survivors that were there, so that they didn't run into Terminus like they did.
Yeah.
Even if there's like 1 or 2 people left that are still going to try and pull the shit that they pulled. I thought that it was something like that, but clearly it's not, because we saw another set of markings in the show.
And Morgan recognized him. He smiled.
Which leads me to my my really, really negative prediction, and I think it's something we're going to find out later on down the line if I'm right. Rick and Morgan did come across each other last 2 seasons ago or so, when he went back home and tried to find him, whatever. And Morgan, at that point,
lost his shit.
Morgan was not okay.
No.
I'm not willing to bet that he's any better off now, which is why I'm going to put this to you. The next time Rick and Morgan come across each other, we're going to find out that Morgan is one of the guys from Terminus.
I don't think so.
Because in the state that he was in, where he was like, there's nothing else left, and the only reason I can't shoot myself is, I don't have the balls to do it and whatever, and if I kill myself, then I'm not going to go to heaven and see my family and all that. He was at such a helpless state the last time we saw him. I figure if anybody, he's going to be the one that it's most easy to convince. It's like, hey, the world is fucked. We might as well be cannibals.
Might as well. But there's also the... When Rick did go back to his hometown and he ended up reuniting with Morgan, Morgan had absolutely no trust with anyone. He didn't even recognize Rick at first, saying that dead people or people were wearing dead people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Why are people wearing dead people's faces? Trying to, you know, like raiders or something like that.
Yeah.
In another timeline from Rick's point, from Morgan's point of view, but
at that point, I was going on the assumption that he was hallucinating. I'm not going to lie.
Possibly.
But now that we know that there's cannibals, maybe not.
Yeah. I just don't think that Rick, Morgan would be part of Terminus. I don't believe that.
I don't think he would want to be. I think in his mental state, it would be easy to convince him that he has to be to survive. Because I think at this point he would assume, okay, Rick left, his group left, I'm never going to catch up with them again. And then he saw Rick again, and he wasn't in any state to follow them, so he, in his own mind, he's like, okay, I missed them once, they left again, there's no way I'm going to be that lucky again, I got to find some people. And if some people happen to be the wrong people, it's better than nobody. Like, I could just as easily, and again, not to say that necessarily that he would have wanted to be, but I could definitely have seen him in his, as I say, in the state that he was in, being absorbed into something like Woodbury. So Terminus, I'm sorry to say this, because even I won't say this about the governor in Woodbury, because there were some good people there. Woodbury is one or two mouthfuls away from being Terminus.
Yeah.
Really.
Essentially, it was a little bit more of a humanized society, thus cannibalism. But they were on their way.
Woodbury was very Stepford, though. Like, let's be real.
Oh yeah.
We should have been doing this a lot sooner. We would have had a lot of fun talking about Woodbury and the amount of people that Andrea was potentially banging.
Carol.
What happened on Walking Dead last week? I only saw half of it.
I only saw half of it. I didn't see. Governor.
Governor.
I don't know how to make this relationship name work. Carol and Daryl. Because Carol, Daryl, you can intertwine it and it's...
Care Dare stick! I made the joke last week. Daryl's either going to go really old or really young. Carol and... he could either have Carol or he could go chase after Beth again. With Beth going by in that car...
Was it the same car, though?
It wasn't the same car because the car had the cross in it. My thing to you is this: as far as the dynamic of who's the person in Daryl's life, he sped after Beth, reckless abandon, 100%, right? But took Carol with him. So here's the thing: here's my motivation. Here's the number one thing that I'm going after right now. And here's the person that, if I'm going to go on an adventure, this is the person I definitely want beside me. Both of them are relationship
potentials.
But yeah. The fact that
I was actually asked the other day why Daryl smashed out his lights,
that whoever was driving knew that he wasn't.
Exactly. That's what I told them. It was just like
it's a covert thing,
stealth tactic.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, it'll be interesting because there's definitely something. There's definitely things percolating between Carol and Daryl.
Carter. What happened? Carter took the cur.
But no, it's definitely something to watch. It's definitely it has to be it's got to be by design. The people of the show have got to be doing this to make us think what way is he going to go, because somebody, and I'm not going to mention any names, was saying all through last season, oh, Daryl's just going to rail Beth and that's just how it's going to be. No names,
no.
Of course. Especially if she's not here right now and she'd kick both of our asses. This is a thing full of stuff. But you know, and my initial reaction was, no, that's wrong. And then it's one of those, well, zombie apocalypse, what's wrong? We do need to repopulate. Glenn and Maggie can't do it all.
Yes.
Oh! Not in our notes, not in anything, not even anything that you and I discussed before. Really cool moment between Maggie and I can't think of her name, the young black-haired girl that was helping Glenn last season. The little lesbian chick.
Oh, the one that was from the governor's group.
Yeah, really cool moment with her just coming to Maggie, and it didn't really change anything, but like, hey, I was with the governor when he did what he did to you.
She basically atoned for what happened at the prison.
I don't think it was atoning, because I think ultimately, and Rick said it to her earlier in the episode, like, I called you out when that all happened because I knew you didn't want to be there. And I think Maggie knows the same thing, but at the same time, for her to come out and have that...
It's a respect thing.
It's a respect thing, and just to have that moment that needed to happen between her and Maggie.
Yep.
I was there. I don't want this to be a secret. You know, I'm appreciating... Like, behind that, there's all the, you know, thank you for accepting me in your group, yada, yada.
The gratitude.
But, you know, big hug between them. I see going forward, there's going to be quite a sisterhood between the two of them. Yep. Especially when Maggie does not know what's going on with her actual sister right now.
Yes.
So there's quite a family dynamic between the three of them, like boyfriend, girlfriend, sister, friend, that dynamic. Like there's subgroups within the group, and I think it makes the group work better, and it makes the storytelling of the show
it also brings several different perspectives to the group too.
Yeah. I mean, if the group ever does separate, I mean, like, you see Abraham trying to sort of direct them and tell them, not boss them around, but be like, this has been my mission for a long time, I gotta get this guy to Washington, yada, 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 this is what we need to do, we're gonna save the world, blah, blah, blah. And it's all well and good for him to have that mission, and he's worked, and he's tried so long to get Eugene where he's going. And the whole group gave him a reality check too. It's like, look, we see what you're doing, it's awesome, I really do believe you can save the world, but you know what, sucks to be you. Whatever Rick does, we're with him.
Yeah.
Like there's not a struggle between Abraham and Rick yet, because I think they're working well together right now, but there's definitely a hierarchy, and it's not something that's being put out by Rick, it's being put out by the rest of the group because Rick's earned it.
Yeah.
Is we're gonna do whatever Rick does.
There's also something I want to touch up on the whole Abraham speech thing. When they were all having dinner inside the church, everyone was there.
Everyone was there, yeah.
Carol looked towards the door. And when she looked towards the door, it was kind of like one of those things like, we just escaped death. Yet again. But we're here as a family, and we're basically acting like a family, but no one is standing guard. This entire massacre just happened, and no one is standing guard. We're not protecting ourselves at this moment. We're just taking a second to digress from their previous situation to the current one. And I think that's just kind of like one of those things where the realization is there where you have to have those moments like that, but there's also that
you can't really.
You can't, because
like it was when they were in the prison and they had the guard tower, right?
Yeah.
And it might have been Glenn and Maggie banging up in the tower, but there was always somebody there.
Yeah, there was always somebody watching, but at that point there was nobody watching. And it was kind of, and
now is I'm forgetting, is that what led her to be out by the car? Because she was out by the car on her own before Daryl found her and they went after Beth.
I believe that was on a different scene. I'm not exactly sure. Don't quote me.
Because here's my thought. Originally, there's the scene where he sees the car with Beth in it drive by, and he takes Carol with him, and they go off. But initially, she's there on her own. I very much, and I can't put my finger on why, so like, there's no point in even asking me. But I got the feeling, or I got the vibe from just what she was doing, and when Daryl asked her what she was doing, she couldn't even give him a straight answer. I think it was very much, my purpose was to get Judith back to Rick, and maybe I should just fuck off.
Exactly, because even when with the first one, and they were talking about going to Terminus, she's like, I'll go, but I'm not staying.
Yeah. And
I think that's exactly what she was doing when she ended up going and getting that car, and she was about to take off. I think she was about to take off and go do her own thing again.
Yeah. Now, that can be for any number of reasons. She might think she's better on her own. She might think that Rick doesn't want her there. She might think that she doesn't deserve to be in the group. Like, my purpose was to get Judith back to her father, and now I'm going to go on my merry fucking way.
Yeah.
But it leaves itself wide open for, the development of the story between her and Rick. It pushes that relationship, like we said before, between her and Daryl. It as far as the structure of the episode, it got her where she needed to be out on that chase with Daryl looking for Beth. I don't know, because Carol is de facto becoming the focus of the show in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I agree.
As the zombie apocalypse goes on, Rick gets more hair down here, Carol gets more hair up here.
Yes.
It is a thing.
Trust me, Movember's coming. The beard will stay.
Yep.
And there's nothing worse than getting blood stuck in your beard. Neck biters.
So leave her alone a couple days a week, or a month.
Who's a badass and who's a bitch?
You go first, because
I think my badass would have to be. I was gonna say Carol, or no, it wasn't Carol. I was gonna say Michonne, because of when they were walking through the woods and Abraham was talking with the other military girl. I forget her name.
She's kind of irrelevant, so I don't know her name either.
But
they really make
Michonne went to go for her sword to take out that one single walker, and then she went, "Oh yeah, I don't have that anymore." Okay, takes out a zombie or a walker with just the back end of her gun, and Abraham sat there and said, "This is why we're sticking around and waiting until the right time to go."
Yeah, I think it's kind of to your point, and I'm going to be countering this in a second. It's to your point that she's so reliant on that sword, but at the same time, when that weapon that she's so reliant on is gone, it doesn't faze her in the slightest.
Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, that's not here anymore. I guess I got to use whatever else I have now.
Yeah,
gone.
Who's the bitch?
Who's the bitch? I want to say Father Gabriel. Yeah. Just from the amount of screaming that man did in that one episode.
There's a joke there.
He was
that I'm just not. No, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. At least the. I'm not ready to say that he's a bitch yet. As he presents himself to the rest of the group as this really, really helpless guy, definitely.
I'm just saying in this current episode.
Oh, in the current episode,
he would be the bitch.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, he was up there on a rock. He was a man on an island of zombies. Badooch.
Dead Island. Video games.
Video games are a thing, apparently.
You're a badass and you're a bitch.
My badass is... Who the fuck? Oh! My badass is Daryl, which is... It's about time, because Daryl needs to be badass, because for a long time now, Walking Dead has been the Daryl show. Yeah. So we got a little bit more of that. I like Daryl's character because he's that badass that doesn't really give a fuck about anything, except the stuff he gives a fuck about. Yeah. And Beth is definitely one of those things. Yep. He saw that car go by, he got the idea in his head, because it was dark, it was pitch black, middle of the night type thing. Mm-hmm. He had the possible idea that Beth was in that car. Threw Carol in the car, threw himself in the car, bashed out the lights, completely stealth, reckless abandon, onto his new target. Without a single thought for his well-being, what could possibly be in the car, how much gas is in the car, how successful he may or may not be. Mm-hmm. 110% goal. No, 100.
Well, not reckless, but I mean, like, he's very goal-oriented.
That's what I was about to say. 110% into this new goal, like that, without a slight bit of hesitation.
Lack of transition.
What?
Lack of transition.
Lack of need for transition.
Well, yeah.
That's what I mean.
The proper motivation.
Whereas you see Rick, you see Daryl, and we see every now and then they'll show a commercial from an old episode during the new shows, which is kind of weird because it lets you see where they all are. But they showed a commercial that was a reference to the very first time Rick ever got to the campsite in season 1, where Daryl's just kind of like stomping around and being mad and not giving a fuck. Yeah. To now, look what he's willing to do to possibly, and you have to underline that word, possibly, because he has no idea if Beth's still in that car.
There's absolutely no clue. He'd just seen the back of that car.
He jumped on the possibility that hard, that fast.
Yeah.
That is badass.
If there's a slim chance, go for it.
Oh, exactly. And as much as you've established that Michonne is the badass in this episode, I'm also going to say that she's kind of the bitch. Because Michonne is right up in that Daryl category of, if there's badassery happening in the episode, some of it's coming from Michonne.
Yeah.
Now you saw that one point when they were randomly walking around. This is the other thing too, is because her kill in this episode didn't really mean much. It was just okay. There was 20 of them walking this way. There was one walker. She took a turn. It was her turn to kill something. Yeah. But she popped up. She did it, and she was badass about it. But all that really did was point out that in the past 2 episodes, she really hasn't done much.
Yeah.
And from a character that we have, I guess, higher standards for in that regard, makes her de facto bitch.
Yeah, that works.
It does. That's all I got. We have one announcement to make before we go.
Yes, one more announcement. This Saturday, October 26th, we will be attending the Toronto Zombie March.
Zombie Walk.
Zombie Walk, March Walk. You know, a whole bunch of people dressed up.
He's never been before. He doesn't even know what it's called.
That's how bad.
But for those of you that either know us, or those of you out there in the Toronto area that want to find us and come say hello, it's starting at around noon at Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto. I think the march actually starts at 3 p.m., but the gathering of zombies in Nathan Phillips Square starts around noon. That's when we'll be there. If you have our phone numbers and you are people that we know, obviously you probably already know that we're going, get in touch with us. For those of you out there that don't know us, that are in, say, the Walker's Den or following me on YouTube, etc., that are going to be in the area, message me on YouTube, message either one of us on Facebook or in the Walker's Den. When this video ends, you'll see a graphic with my Twitter, his Twitter, and the group link on Facebook for the Walker's Den. You can message us on there. Lots of other people are going. It's a really good time. I've been the past, I think, other than last year when I was out of the country, I've been for about the past 5 years or so. It's a lot of fun. It's grown to be a huge thing, multiple thousands of people. As I say, we'll be there. Anybody that is following us in any way, shape, or form that we don't already know, come up and say hi. Meet us. Let us know what you think of what we're doing with this. Let us know what you think of the group on Facebook, which has been going for 2 years now.
Yeah, we actually just realized that we reached over 150 members.
I think it's 163, 4, something like that, which is
still
awesome.
More than 150.
Yes, 100.
After the show, we'll have all the credits and everything like up here, ready to go for you guys.
In this region, the screen.
Or, you know, like right here.
Or you can leave your comments down in our crotch.
Yes. Have a good night, guys.